Friends, today I am super excited to have a cafecito with my friend and my colleague Skip Watts. Salud, Skip.
Salud.
Salud. Today we have a really important topic that we really want to highlight with you guys and really have a conversation about helpful tips for Latinx and Hispanic students to search and apply for scholarships. Right now we're concentrating on Latinx and Hispanic students, but this information is really helpful for anyone. There's a lot of things that students can do to search and apply for scholarships. So my friend Skip Watts. Skip, welcome.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for arranging this. I hope we can provide some really valuable information for our
Oh,
audience.
no doubt, no doubt. One of the things that I recognize is higher education is such an important piece for many students, and being able to afford it is even more important. So this is really a good starting point. Skip, tell us about you. What do you do? Where you work? What do you like to do for fun? Who is Skip Watts?
Well, Skip Watts is a 42-year-old gentleman who's been relegated to the basement of his house for the last 40 plus days. So if you've been watching any Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel or any of those late night TV show hosts, they're hosting in strange places around their house. This is my office currently. You can see it is more of a shed where I keep my skis and my bikes and things like that. So excuse the background. This is the best I can do. I have a middle schooler upstairs on campus doing homework, and I have a wife who's an academic advisor at the local university upstairs on another video chat. So thank you again for having me. I'm a lifelong educator. I've worked with a lot of different populations around the state of North Carolina, and for that matter, around the country. I've been working with CFNC for a little over 10 years, and it's just been the blessing of a lifetime. I'm really fortunate to be able to travel around the state and help people figure out how to pursue their dreams. I specialize in scholarship attainment. That's what I like to focus most of my time and attention on. But I'm familiar with the admissions process and the college financial aid process as well. So I'm more than willing to venture into those topics if needed. Currently, I reside in Western North Carolina. As I mentioned, I'm married to one of the most intelligent and beautiful women in the whole world. Her name's Beth Watts. If you meet Beth, please tell her I said that. My son, Alden, again, is in middle school. He's coming up on 8th grade, and we're just dealing with all the fluctuation in the world right now. Fortunately, though, I'm still in a position where I have this wonderful platform that Juan S. has provided to hopefully help you guys find some scholarship opportunities and potentially other financial aid opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Skip, you as an educator, you understand deeply that affording higher education is really an important topic that we need to talk about. And
it's
I think that
unfortunate,
people,
Juan S. It's unfortunate that college has become so expensive, and this topic is such a preeminent topic when we talk about college access. But I don't think it's a mountain that's unconquerable. I think there are plenty of opportunities, but it requires the student and maybe even the student's family to be proactive in how they plan to pay for college.
Yep. So I want to be respectful to all our audience, but I do know, Skip, that we're working with a lot of first generation students that don't even know what a scholarship is.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, scholarship, quite simply, is free money to pay for college. Generally, scholarships come from private institutions. That could be the university you want to attend. That could, in fact, be a community college. That could be your employer, your parents' employer, your church, your mosque, whatever faith-based organization you participate in. There are a plethora of organizations offering scholarships. And again, scholarships are money kind of like when your grandmother gives you money on Christmas. You're not expected to pay it back. Okay. Other components of the financial aid process do include student loans, which differ dramatically from scholarships because, again, scholarships don't have to be paid back, whereas student loans generally do have to be paid back within a 10-year note. I should also mention there's grant possibilities for many students in North Carolina and across the nation. Grants I like to think of as free dollars that oftentimes come from a governmental entity. Generally speaking, a student and their family will have to complete the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, to be eligible for grant opportunities. But my hope is that students that are proactive can maximize grant and scholarship opportunities to help cover the increasing cost of education. With that said, college is dramatically more expensive now than it was for you and I. Back in the 80s and early 90s, college was roughly 800% less expensive than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're seeing is students that want to pursue higher education have plenty of opportunities to do so, but oftentimes they're not thinking proactively about acquiring scholarship and grant dollars. Instead, they're just paying out of pocket, or in many cases borrowing to pay for their college experience. My hope is that through these kind of outreach efforts, we can really get students on board with thinking further out and looking for more scholarship opportunities, as opposed to borrowing and simply putting that debt on themselves after graduation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so recently we had a conversation about the college savings plans, and how starting early is really one of the benefits of a college saving plan for scholarships. And when is the best time, Skip, to start thinking about scholarships and really start that strategy that we're going to talk about that drives the scholarship search and application process?
I believe the earlier students can get on board with scholarship pursuits, the better. I like to think that if students can start actively thinking about their future in middle school, that's
Okay.
a really good time to start dialing in your grade point average and starting to prepare for certain career pursuits. So I don't think it's too early in 7th or 8th grade to start thinking about scholarships. In fact, on CFNC.org, our employer, there are some scholarships for middle school students. They're not designed to help a student pay for college tuition. Instead, they're designed to help students pursue educational opportunities in the summer. For example, it might be a STEM camp at Appalachian State, or a creative writing camp at UNCG. Those opportunities can be paid for with scholarship opportunities, but it requires the student and the family to start thinking proactively. And again, not to pull attention back to the 529, but from the parental perspective, that's one of the best things I think you can do for your child. Instead of rewarding them maybe for great grades monetarily, maybe you can put some money in a 529 to help them pursue their educational goals after high school. Or perhaps parents can encourage relatives to contribute to that 529. At any rate, the earlier students can start saving for college, the better. And the earlier students can get in the mindset of scholarship attainment, the better.
Mm-hmm. I love that that we're upfront with with the students and families, that this is a strategy that requires many pieces of the puzzle. It's like a big puzzle that requires many pieces. So now that we're talking about specifically free money, I love that. I love free money, and I want to get all the free money possible. And I think students and families should also look for all the free money as possible. So Skip, you mentioned having good grades, starting being involved in middle school or high school. I'm sure that you're saying it for a reason, because that plays out on the type of opportunities that we're able to pursue when we're applying for scholarships. Is that correct?
You are absolutely correct. Colleges love to see students with strong academic performances. They love seeing the straight A students and the A and B students, but they really love seeing students that have strong GPAs mixed with some extracurricular activities. I like to think of a college as an institution that is betting on those students to graduate and pursue that education. And by showing a college that you can keep your grades strong, you can participate in maybe a athletic endeavor or a club, or maybe some kind of youth-oriented activity through your faith-based community, that shows that university that you can keep multiple balls in the air at the same time. And that indicates, again, to the university that you have a higher likelihood of graduating from that institution. So I see a lot of colleges, in my experience, reward students that not only have strong grades, strong standardized test scores, but are also involved outside of the classroom. That's a key component. I like to encourage students to not just join clubs or teams willy-nilly, but to think seriously about what they enjoy doing and how those clubs, those organizations, those teams can help them to pursue those goals down the road. For example, if a student's really interested in politics, it might be wise for that student to consider joining the Model UN Security Council. It just kind of helps them to understand the political conversation and the context in which major geopolitical things are decided upon. And I think that there's a multitude of clubs. There's future business leaders and future farmers, and there's all kinds of opportunities, but students have to get outside of their comfort zone and make an effort to take advantage of those things.
I'm a real believer that we need to introduce our students early to those type of experiences so that they can see what it looks like in the real world to do whatever they want to do. I think that that's a powerful message. So, okay, so we know. So let's put a highlight here. What you do now matters. Students,
Absolutely.
families, please, counselor, help us get that message that the students, what they get, that what they're doing now matters in terms of finding scholarships and finding those free money, because they are different. They're looking for different things, right?
Absolutely. And if it's okay with you, Juanes, can I share my screen so I can show some of the resources that I was kind of alluding to a minute ago?
Please do. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Hold tight real quick. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to move over to a Google search that I have underway. Now, currently, I'm on the CFNC.org platform, and I'm specifically within the Adelante page. Did I pronounce that correctly, Juana? Okay.
Yeah.
This page is an outreach effort by the state of North Carolina and CFNC and the North Carolina Society of Hispanic Professionals to offer scholarship opportunities specifically to students of Hispanic origin. So dropping down here a little bit, if I just simply scroll down from the introduction page, I can see information for parents, middle school students, high school students. And if I drop down from the middle school to scholarship information for all students, this is going to link me over to the NCH, the North Carolina Hispanic Professional Society page. And from here, I can go up to resources and then drop down, and it's going to give me an option. Well, in a minute, it's going to give me an option to find scholarships specifically designed for that demographic, for that population. I think this is a great thing to take advantage of in North Carolina, but that is by no means the extent of all the scholarship opportunities that exist statewide or nationally. As I was kind of perusing some of these scholarships, you'll see that a lot of them are really detail oriented. They want students that are coming specifically from one part of the state or going into a specific career pursuit. At any rate, there are a plethora of scholarships for those populations that I think students across the state of North Carolina need to be aware of. Now, these students that are, again, North Carolina residents are going to have a lot of opportunities within CFNC, but also there's pages like the Unigo site. Unigo is a nonprofit national scholarship website. And as I was looking through a lot of these scholarships this morning, I found that a lot still have deadlines that are available for students to apply for, even this late in the game. I should say, Juanes, that scholarships have deadlines that range all over the calendar. They could have January deadlines and they could have December deadlines. What I see, generally speaking, though, is most institutional scholarships or scholarships that come from the university have deadlines in the fall. Oftentimes in the state of North Carolina, the public institutions have November 1st or October 15th deadlines, whereas local scholarships or scholarships that are coming from a private organization, they often have deadlines in the fall, or excuse me, in the spring. So I think they're are a ton of opportunities, but we have to have students just be aware of the fact that they need to stay organized. And I think the best way of organizing scholarship research is in a spreadsheet. I personally like Excel, but I know a lot of students in North Carolina and nationally use numbers. At any rate, if we could just create a quick spreadsheet to help students keep up with these deadlines and the award amounts, I think that would be a really beneficial way for students to move forward in their scholarship research. So I think it would be helpful if I real quickly just pulled up a new spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and just open up a blank spreadsheet. So real quick, I'm trying to figure out how I could open a new one. Here we go. I'm just going to a blank workbook. Guys, bear with me. If I were a student in North Carolina or anywhere in the country, I would keep a scholarship spreadsheet down in the toolbar of my PC or whatever computer you're using. In that spreadsheet, I would simply have maybe 5 columns. One could be the name of the scholarship.
Are you showing us your spreadsheet, Skip? We can't see the spreadsheet yet.
Oh, okay. Let me figure this out. Sorry, guys. I'm going to go for new share. I'm going to drop down here to Excel. And thank you guys for dealing with my technological.
We can see it now.
Okay, my technological inadequacies. All right, so this is a spreadsheet that I would recommend any high school or community college or even university student type up and have down in their toolbar. So when I say toolbar, I'm talking down here in the bottom of my page. So the first column I would simply have is the name of the scholarship. The second column, I'd probably make the deadline. For the next column, I think it would be helpful if students put the award amount. And I say that because in a perfect scenario, students can compile scholarship dollars up to the cost of attendance at a university. The cost of attendance, just so students and families know, is essentially every cost you're going to be expected to pay at a university. That could be tuition, that could be room and board, it could also include fees, it could range. But in a perfect world, I want students to align enough scholarships to meet that cost of attendance and hopefully not have to borrow or pay out of pocket. On top of the award amount, I think it would be beneficial if students maybe put a note about the essay requirements. And then lastly, I would recommend students make a letter of recommendation section. Simply put, a recommendation letter is a letter from somebody other than your parents' students that can verify that you are going to be a solid recipient of that free money. Understand, students, for the most part, our parents and our family members think we're awesome. Okay, we need letters or recommendation letters from folks that aren't directly related to you. So if I were thinking proactively about scholarship opportunities, I would also have in the back of my mind maybe 3 people in my life outside of my family that I could ask for recommendation letters. That could be my pastor, my priest, my mom, my part-time employer. That could be my school counselor, my coach, some favorite teachers. At any rate, a lot of scholarships require students to present 3 recommendation letters. So if we can think early about who could write those letters, that would be beneficial. Essay requirements. Some scholarships have essays that might be several thousand words. Others, like some scholarships on Twitter, only require this, 140 characters or something like that. But most scholarships do have essay requirements. So again, I would make note of these things. I would keep this in my toolbar. And then every time I found a scholarship through my research on CFNC or Unigo or scholarships.com, I would simply cut and paste that information into my spreadsheet. I think that's a really simple recommendation, but in my experience, this is one of the most powerful things a student can do to stay on top of those scholarship dollars.
I agree completely. And even, Skip, now that I'm looking at this, even for transferring students, you could easily add another tab and put any other requirements like transcripts or I have seen few scholarships that require a video, things like that. So I think it's really dynamic because you can really add whatever information you think is going to help you get that scholarship.
That's really insightful. So students, I would encourage you to consider adding other columns if you think other information might be relevant. What I would do though, if I were currently a freshman, sophomore, maybe even an 11th grader in high school in North Carolina, I would start looking through various scholarship resources today. The earlier we can start, especially while we have time on our hands, the earlier we can start planning for these opportunities, the better. That may start with CFNC.org. That may also start with scholarships.com, Unigo, or it could also include some university-specific research. What I'm going to do now is open up a new tab. I'm going to pick on NC State. NC State, students, is a wonderful land-grant school in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's one of the strongest agriculture and tech communities in the Southeast. But why I'm pulling their page today is they offer a plethora of scholarship opportunities, but you have to know where to look. So the first thing we need to do is identify colleges that have the major or the thing we want to study. And from there, we need to figure out how that college offers scholarships. There's no federal or state mandate that says NC State's got to operate just like UNC Chapel Hill in the way they offer scholarship and grant opportunities. So they generally operate in completely different manners. So what I'm going to do today is just show a student that's interested in maybe pursuing an engineering degree at NC State. I want to show that student how they can find some free money that comes specifically from that institution. So if we go from the NC State homepage and we go over to the search window on the far right, almost every institutional webpage has some kind of search feature over there. So I'm going to click on scholarships, and it's critical, students, at this point forward that we make sure we spell scholarships correctly. Okay, if we don't spell it correctly, we're not eligible for any of that money. Okay, so from here, I'm going to click the search button. And as soon as this next page loads, you can see that there's all kinds of scholarship links from the NC State website. What I want to pursue today are just general scholarships. So I'm going to go to the Student Services Center scholarship page. Now, as soon as this page loads, it's going to offer some insight as to how NC State offers scholarships. And oftentimes, the biggest pots of money that students can access at NC State come from the college they'll graduate from. And that seems kind of confusing to families, but let me back up. I like to think of a university as a giant umbrella. That umbrella that is NC State, it encompasses all of these different colleges. When a student gets done with their general education requirements, their math, their English, their World Civ, they can then apply for admission to the education or the engineering or the exploratory studies college at NC State. When a student is admitted to one of those colleges under that university umbrella, then they have the opportunity to apply for those college-specific scholarships. And at NC State, oftentimes that's where the biggest pots of money that students can acquire come from. But if I scroll down, and I guess I should say also, Juanes, a lot of students at NC State and at universities across the country, they don't realize that they can continue searching for scholarships even when they're at the university. So this process might start in middle school and go all the way through graduate school if a student wants to go to college that long. I guess what I'm driving at here is it's a constant process. The more we commit to the search, the more time, the more effort we put into our essays and the other requirements, the more likely we are to get that free money. So back to NC State. There's also at NC State scholarships that are based on your employment or perhaps your parent's employer. You'll see here that a lot of these scholarships are employer affiliated, meaning that if you work for the city of Raleigh, or if your parents work for the city of Raleigh, there might be a scholarship specifically at NC State for you, so on and so on. There's a lot of opportunities here. As I drive down a little further, there's Rising Freshman Distinctive Scholarships, like the Park The park is essentially a full ride scholarship. When I say that, I mean the park will pay for the students' tuition, room and board. They'll also get some money potentially for a computer and lab fees. It is a wonderful opportunity, but students have to be nominated by their school counselor by November 1st, their senior year, to even be in consideration for the park. So again, going back to that mantra, we have to start early and we have to manage those deadlines really effectively. There's a multitude of other scholarships at NC State, but look at this, Juanes. Look how few graduate-related scholarships there are. That's one trend that I see is students that are pursuing a master's degree or a PhD or a medical doctorate or a Juris Doctorate. Oftentimes, those students have a harder time finding scholarship opportunities at the graduate level. So I like to tell students, especially those that are headed towards a graduate program, to really focus on finding as many scholarship dollars for their associate's degree or bachelor's degree, because they might have to pay out of pocket, take advantage of a fellowship, or perhaps even borrow to get their graduate degree. Now, scrolling down a little further, you see there's all kinds of miscellaneous scholarships. Parents, if you were a member of the armed forces, you might want to look into some VA opportunities. I recommend parents, if that has been part of your past, to go to va.gov and try to figure out if that GI Bill opportunity is available for you to pass along to your students. You can see here there's ROTC related scholarships, and that kind of bounces back to our earlier conversation. Students, if you can find clubs and things that you enjoy, sometimes there's scholarship dollars that can be taken advantage of because of those pursuits. The ROTC, for example, I think they offer like $40 million or something like that in scholarships nationally. So we just have to figure out where we are in life, what we want to pursue, what colleges have those opportunities, and then we have to start gearing our academic performance and our extracurriculars towards meeting those expectations.
Wow, that's a good information, Skip. Let's summarize a little bit here, just so make sure that everybody understood. So scholarships come from many places, many requirements, and it's really up to us to figure out which one fits our needs the best.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that there's scholarship based on need and based on merit. So like engineer, I want to be engineer. So there might be scholarships directly for that.
Absolutely.
And then that
I'm going to step back real quick, Juanes, and just make sure that we understand need-based versus merit-based scholarships.
Okay.
Is that okay if I do that?
Please do, please.
Sometimes I think we get tied up in this college jargon, and I want to make sure everybody knows where we're going. So merit-based scholarships are scholarships that are based on merit. Simply put, that could be our grade point average, that could be our extracurricular participation, that could be a scholarship that we get from our employer. Need-based scholarships are much different. Need-based opportunities are derived after a family completes the FAFSA. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go over to the free application for federal student aid's webpage and just talk a little bit about that. So again, I'm going to go to FAFSA.gov. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. As soon as this page loads, it's going to take me to studentaid.gov. And this is essentially where I believe the financial aid process starts for high school seniors. Okay, so we don't have to worry about this in middle school. We don't have to worry about this in our 9th, 10th, or really even the 11th grade year. This all comes to fruition our 12th grade year. At any rate, once we complete this FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, we're then given what in effect is a score called the expected family contribution, or EFC in financial aid speak. The lower your expected family contribution, the more need-based opportunities exist. Now, need-based are scholarships and grants that are based on the parents' finances, essentially. Your finances are reflected on the FAFSA through that EFC, or expected family contribution. So the lower your EFC, the more need-based scholarship and grant opportunities exist. For example, if I were to sit down with my parents and do the FAFSA, and if I did the FAFSA and we scored really low, we had a 0 EFC, I would then be made eligible for upwards of $6,000 from the federal Pell Grant program. Okay, if I could take that $6,000 Pell Grant and then couple on top of that several other local or state or institutional scholarships, that's how I can pay for college in total through scholarships. But it generally starts with this FAFSA. And if you want to be in consideration for any need-based opportunities, you will most certainly have to complete the FAFSA. And I recommend students complete that again their senior year, sometime before Christmas, preferably in October or November. Okay, so that's kind of an explanation of need-based versus merit-based scholarships. From here, I'm quickly going to try to go over to CFNC.org. So I'm going to go from the student aid page back to CFNC. And as soon as this page loads, I'm going to drop over to the Pay tab. Students can navigate CFNC through the tabs at the top of the screen, but the Pay tab is really what's going to be the point of our attention today. So I'm going to drop down from the Pay tab, and I'm going to click Grants and Scholarships. Now, we have a featured webinar on how you can find scholarships. We've got links to the various grants that students are made eligible for after they complete the FAFSA. And then if I drop down a little further, I can link over to North Carolina specific scholarships. Okay, if perhaps we can complete the FAFSA, get a Pell Grant, maybe find a scholarship based on our ethnic history, and then couple that with a scholarship based on our educational interest, that's probably the best way to find scholarships. And if you look here, we've got several different links for different types of scholarships. We've got military dependent scholarships for graduate students. But what I want to call attention to real quick are some of the programs that are close and near and dear to my heart. They're not true scholarships, though, Juanes. These are what are called scholarship loans.
Okay.
If a student in North Carolina wants to be an educator, they want to maybe teach STEM or middle school, or maybe they want to go into special education, they can take advantage of the Forgivable Education Loan for Service. Essentially, this is a program that's funded by the state of North Carolina to fill critical needs areas. So if a student wants to go into education, as I just mentioned, or perhaps any component of the healthcare field, the state will basically help them pay for college. It'll pay up to $56,000 for the student's doctoral degree. However, the catch is, every year a student takes North Carolina's money is the year they'll have to pay the state back through service post-graduation. Okay, so it's, if let's use me as a hypothetical. If I take 2 years of FELS funding to pay for my bachelor's degree in special education, then I would be expected to teach in special ed for 2 years after I graduated in North Carolina. If I moved to South Carolina, or I decided education's not what I want to do, then this would turn into a loan. Okay, so it's really critical that if students are going to take advantage of all these dollars which are available, that they're committed to the field and committed to the state of North Carolina. We've also got a program for future highway patrolmen, sheriff's department people. We've got another teaching fellows program that's similar, but not in any way related to the FELS program. At any rate, I just need students and families to be aware that we're going to look for scholarships based on our ethnicity. We're going to look for grants based on our financial need. And then we're also going to pursue additional scholarship opportunities based on what we want to pursue in school and just in general. Now, I've talked a little bit about North Carolina specific scholarships, talked a little bit about scholarships at the institution. I should also point out, Juanes, that sometimes the most available opportunities, or the opportunities that have the least applicants, are local scholarships. And in Western North Carolina, there's a bunch of resources that are designed to help first generation or just students in Western North Carolina pursue college. This isn't going to be available for students across the state, but I do want to pull out CFWNC.org for students that reside in the western part of the state. If that is the case, if you live anywhere from Catawba County down to Mitchell County or up to Ashe County, this is a website I want you to get familiar with, because there's a lot of smaller scholarships in there that have smaller applicant pools, meaning that fewer students are applying, which means that with the fewer applicants, students are more apt to get that free money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people sometimes they think that everybody else is applying and don't apply. So what you're saying is start, start in your backyard in a way. Look at your backyard and see what's available and apply for those.
Yep. And this is a resource that really can help students do that. This is the North Carolina Community Foundation. This is a nonprofit resource that specifically helps students find scholarships based on the county with which they reside in. Okay, the website is ncommunityfoundation.org. This is a nonprofit. All these resources that I've mentioned today are free, so you should never pay for this information.
Can you repeat that again?
ncommunityfoundation.org. I mentioned this is a nonprofit website, just like CFNC. Students should never pay for scholarship information. It should always.
That's a great point, Skip, because finding free money, you should not be having to pay. So thank you. Yes.
I'm glad I could provide that. Now, I just want to call attention to the fact that this apply tab, if you drop down to scholarships, students, if you're looking for a scholarship that's based on the county that you reside in, this is where I need you to start looking. So I'm just going to drop down to learn how to apply. And as soon as this next page loads, I can drop down here at the bottom of the page and actually input the county that I live in. And then I can find scholarships for, in this case, Chatham County. All right, so if I drop down, I'm trying to scroll and I'm having a hard time. You can see there's just a bunch of scholarships for students, I guess, in this case, in the eastern part of the state. All right, so I just like to encourage students to not rely on just their ethnicity necessarily, but to focus on other things that make them unique, including the area of which they live and what they're hoping to study.
Excellent point.
Now I'm going to stop sharing Juanez and back to you.
No, that was fantastic information. I was learning and taking notes myself as you were showing some of those great resources that we have. So one of the things that I often speak with the students is how overwhelming this process could be, because there's information coming from so many places, but that's a great thing that there's people willing to support students and companies and organizations willing to support the education. I think it just takes a little bit of organization to find out which ones you may qualify. So like you mentioned, that spreadsheet, that's actually the strategy that I took just to make sure that I had all my requirements and things ready. One of the things, Skip, that we like to do in the Cafecitos is really give advice to students. So if you had like one or two things that are the most important when they're searching and applying for scholarships, what things come to your mind for students, for parents, and for counselors?
Oh, well, I think students need to be vigilant. They need to really focus on maximizing their time outside of the classroom. They need to maximize their grades. They need to also, continue this research. Parents really need to focus on this as well. Sometimes parents are going to be in the background cracking the whip, the proverbial whip, saying, Johnny, Sally, let's go. Come on, I need you to spend 30 minutes this weekend looking for scholarships. Parents can also benefit their students by helping them with their essays. Oftentimes students are slapping together these essays really quickly and then submitting essays with typos or grammatical mistakes. If I were currently a student applying for scholarships, I would have at least 2 or 3 individuals that I trusted, that might include my parent, proofread that recommendation letter, or excuse me, that essay. So parents can definitely assist in that. Parents can also, just be mindful of the fact that it's also their responsibility to help students pay for college. That might involve 529. That might involve just helping them organize their finances, helping the students organize their finances as they're in college. And then counselors, for the most part, are very savvy and totally aware of all the opportunities that are out there. But the more they can put those out in front of the students, the better. A lot of counselors in my region, in the western part of the state, are really active in like student-based newsletters. Every 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe every month, they send a newsletter directly to students' email accounts, and that'll detail scholarship opportunities that are available. I think students are increasingly more active on social media. So I think some counselors might want to actually try to meet students halfway and offer some of this information up through social media. I'm not suggesting they do TikTok dances or anything like that, but Instagram might be something that if we can figure out as adults, it might be a great outlet to get some of that information out. And then Facebook as well. I don't know that students are as active on Facebook as their parents, but counselors, if we can push that information out to the parents, then that can maybe incite some of those parents to get the kids on the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Skip. In fact, um, I'm pretty active on social media myself, sharing those scholarships and those opportunities. As people are sharing those with us, I know you do the same thing. So I hope that people have the opportunity to look for us on social media. I am on Facebook and Instagram at Juanes at CFNC. And I know my colleague is also in some of those platforms.
Yeah, I'm Skip at CFNC, and I've already posted some scholarship information this morning. I try to do so daily. So yeah, definitely follow us. Part of our job is to help students pay for college, and so we're trying to meet students and parents halfway and just get that information out in whatever way possible.
Skip, I really love that you kind of alluded to this, and I'm gonna use my own words to say it. But I think you mentioned that students are working so hard that this is a good time to brag about them, to brag about the activities that they're doing, to brag about their grades, to complete the applications in ways that are complete. You and I have been both reviewing scholarship applications in the past, and even granting some of those scholarship applications. And one of the things that we notice, or that I personally notice, is that, and I'm gonna ask you what you have noticed, but I noticed that people are sending wrong information. So like if they're applying for this particular scholarship, they're sending a letter that they created for another scholarship. And I don't know, that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, that the student either didn't read correctly the details, or that they're not paying attention. So my personal recommendation for students is to read carefully and don't waste your time. If you see you don't meet the requirements, don't waste your time. But if you do decide to go for that scholarship, be mindful of the directions. Like you mentioned earlier, the essay part. If it has 1,000 words, do not exceed the number that they're telling you. It's for a reason. Or if they're telling you that they need a certain essay from someone specifically, like they might say, oh, I need one from a teacher or someone that knows you in a different level. Ask them for that recommendation letter. What else have you seen, Skip, being in the other side of scholarships and being the person that reviews this information to grant students scholarships?
I think you're absolutely correct, Juanes. A lot of students are burdened, by their studies and their extracurriculars, and this whole scholarship college funding thing is just kind of on top, and they're not putting 100% effort necessarily towards it, where I believe they should definitely focus 100% on this, because essentially the more free money we can get for college, the less we're going to have to pay out of pocket or borrow. So I consider this almost like a part-time job. And in a part-time job, you always want to exceed your employer's expectations. So generally speaking, I recommend students try to use some kind of personal essay they've written for their junior year English requirements in North Carolina. Most of the time, 11th graders in North Carolina are expected to do some kind of personal statement. Okay. Most of the time, those students save that to their computer at school on the cloud, so they have access to that. Generally, those personal statements have to be at least 5 paragraphs. Oftentimes, students that are proactive can use that personal statement as a big part of their essay requirement. Oftentimes, essays require a student to tell them a little bit about themselves. Oftentimes that personal statement that the student wrote in 11th grade is exactly that. So that personal statement might be a way that we've already had something vetted by our teacher. They've already read it. They've already done the grammar. There's all the punctuations dialed in. Maybe we could take the body of that and just change the introduction and the conclusion to meet the expectations of that scholarship subcommittee. Again, even if we add a new intro and conclusion, we still want to have that proofread. And I recommend having it proofread by several individuals. That could be your parent, that could be your favorite teacher, that could be your school counselor, your coach, somebody that you know that is a strong writer should be proofreading that. And then as students are going through those applications, I saw when I was actually chairing a subcommittee, a lot of students getting me that information beyond the deadline. So unfortunately, those deadlines are firm. If I had a December 1st deadline and I received a really qualified candidate's information on the 15th, I couldn't even consider that candidate because they didn't even meet that one specification. So again, I think to really focus on the specifics with your essay, make sure that somebody's proofread it, make sure that it's something you're proud of. Don't feel like you're bragging, because this is one of the few times in life you have this opportunity to really tote what you've done and really put it out there. And then as far as the deadlines, like I said a minute ago, we got to meet those deadlines. They have to be in there on time, or you're not even going to have that opportunity.
Absolutely. Skip, are there any other common mistakes or that you have seen? That way we can kind of warn students
Yeah,
and provide that helpful tip that they need to know.
I see a lot of folks in my region paying for this information. And there's some for-profit organizations that reach out to high school seniors, especially high school seniors that have completed the ACT in North Carolina. These organizations will reach out and say, "Dear Johnny, dear Sally, we're going to meet at the convention center in Hickory, North Carolina on Saturday. We want to invite you to participate in the scholarship funding webinar or conference or whatever. It costs $50 to attend." I see a lot of students paying that $50, spending an afternoon in the convention center, and then coming away with the same information that's readily available and free for all the outlets that we've discussed today. So the first thing I would say is never, ever, ever pay for this information.
Yeah. CFNC is such a great platform that has a lot of information. And I even like that we have regional representatives that are willing to help students, families, and we work with counselors every day. So I hope that people do take advantage of that opportunity. And then for our Latino students, we have two representatives. I'm one of the representatives and my colleague Juana Hernandez that work with our Spanish-speaking community very closely. So we can even talk to your parents or family members about scholarships that we are learning. Skip, is there anything else that I might be missing from our conversation that would be helpful for our students, families, and counselors?
I think we've covered most of the bases. I'm really excited about the responses that we're going to get. But beyond that, I'm really hoping folks listen to this and take all the information that we're offering to heart. If we have some parents of high school students that are listening in, maybe this would just be a good introduction to how we can get them excited about scholarship opportunities. If we have counselors that are listening in, I think you guys are already a wonderful resource, but maybe you can utilize some of these other opportunities and get that information out in different avenues. My hope, though, is that more and more students will rely less on student loans and in turn try to focus their time and energy on scholarship opportunities. Again, I think it's critical that we use our race, our faith, our interest to look for those scholarships. Anything that makes us unique is something that we ought to utilize to help find scholarship dollars. That could even include health conditions or employment opportunities. For example, the biggest scholarship I received for my undergrad came from my employer. I had no idea that that opportunity existed until I was informed by my boss, and luckily I was awarded that. I'm not outside of the norm. I think if I could have found scholarships in the 90s, I know students in this day and time can find opportunities. There's a lot out there. Unfortunately, not enough students are taking advantage. So I recommend students buck the norm, and instead of just relying on student loan dollars, focus on being proactive and looking earlier and finding that money your 11th and 12th grade year.
I love how we can use our skills, abilities, and talents to get free money.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Skip, it has been wonderful spending a little time with you and having this cafecito today. I have my cup today because I know you're a sport man. You like sports.
I do. I just have my cup that I got from upstairs.
But thank you so much. I appreciate your time so much, and thank you for being a resource for our families and communities and counselors. And I guess we'll be in touch in other ways.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to our work in the future. If I can help in any way, to all the families in North Carolina and maybe nationally listening in. Remember to keep your nose to the grindstone, students. Stay focused. Use what makes you special to help fund college. Thank you.
Skip, is a privilege. Skip Watts from College Foundation talking about scholarships. Skip, thank you again for your time, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Virtual Watts. Take care.
Bye.